Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sovereign Community call. We haven't had one for a few months, but we are working very hard to bring into life and make good on everything that we've promised to the Sovereign community. Some of whom are present here, others will watch this on YouTube. And I'm glad to have a turnout. We have quite a lot to cover today, notably about the BOSS token allocation and about the Sovryn Layer. I hope to have time for questions at the end of this. And if you want, we will continue the discussion in the forum, or we can have another one if there's demand. Yago, how are you?
Hello. Very well, thank you, Mr. Victory. Excited to be on the call with everyone again. Here's the agenda that we have for the call today. So we're going to be discussing two key issues, which we've been working towards now for a very long time over the course of the past year. One is the launch of the BOSS platform and BOSS token allocation to Sovryn. The second is utilizing the BOSS platform for the launch of the Sovryn Layer and the implications for Sovryn going forward. So, we'll start with a review of key performance metrics over the last month, and in particular over the last year, but providing a general overview of where we stand with Sovryn. We will then go into the BOSS token allocation, then into the Sovryn Layer, and then we will leave time for questions. So, without further ado, Hyde, I think you're controlling the deck, right? All right. So, I'm going to start with
Next
year
slide,
to date. Yeah, year to date staking rewards. So, has continued to generate significant revenue for stakers on an ongoing basis. This year, we are on a run rate. Correct me if I'm wrong, French, but what we're seeing here, 753,000, is that run rate or year to date?
That's year to date. It's not run rate.
All right. So, value in terms of rewards generated for Sovryn stakers this year so far has been $750,000. We're on an annualized run rate to exceed $1 million in rewards. Most of this is provided in the form of BTC, although there are other assets which are also being provided on an ongoing basis to SOV stakers. What this means is that we've had an average APY this year of 76%. That's very, very high. It's close to 80%, and it means that stakers are generating real yield, right? Primarily in the form of BTC at a rate of 76%. Now, we've discussed this in the past. There is while this is great news, it does represent something of a problem. Because it's showing us that that the market is not responding well enough to these incentives. There should be more people staking. There should be more demand for the SOV token to provide that staking, and I think that speaks to a problem that we've spoken about a number of times, which is the right now Sovryn, despite this performance and the fact that lenders of BTC are generating yield higher than on other platforms, that lenders of stablecoins are generating yield 2x that of on other platforms. So the system is very active, is highly profitable for stakers. but is not getting enough attention. And part of the reason for that is we are on like a corner of the crypto space on Rootstock. And that was a big reason why it was important for us to put so much effort to being able to expand our market. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, so this is not a fluke. One of the interesting things that we've seen in Sovryn is that this has been consistent. So over the close to 5 years of operation, we have always averaged more than $1 million in staker revenue, average APYs of 27%, in total close to 7 million, and we will have exceeded 7 million in rewards driven to SOV stakers by the end of this year. So in that respect, we've got ultimately, I think that is the number one metric that we need to judge ourselves by. Is the platform operating? Is the platform generating incentives, returns, rewards for stakers? And I think the answer is yes, and yes to a degree where the market hasn't properly responded. And just in terms of the mathematics of the market, still undervaluing SOV, just with these metrics, and we'll come to additional metrics in a bit, but just with these metrics, when you're at a 70 or 80% APY, what that effectively is saying is that you can stake the asset. The asset can decrease in value by 60 or 65%, and you would still be making a 10% profit, right? So this is effectively a riskless trade, where even if the asset drops 70%, you're breaking even or still making a profit. Very, very difficult to find those opportunities. So why is the yield so high? The platform itself is highly active. There's been multiple billions transacted on the application. I think this is only looking at a slice of the application, because just in terms of lending, we've done over $1 billion. In terms of trade, so I think this number is actually underreported. and this SOV staking mechanism, one of the challenges that people have challenged us with is, does it make sense to stake for a long time? What you want to be able to do if you are staking for a long time is have a guarantee of consistent returns that you can bank on. And of course, history is no guarantee of the future, but now for 5 years, we've managed to demonstrate this consistent ability to generate just from base activity yield. And with BOSS, we expect to significantly increase that. With Sovryn Layer, we can expect to significantly increase that as well. All right, so coming back to the BOSS token allocation. Let me give a quick rundown of where Bitcoin OS and the BOSS platform is. Bitcoin OS has made tremendous, but perhaps more importantly, fundamental progress. So last year, for the first time ever, the BOSS team managed to demonstrate ZK proofs for the first time in block 853626. The first time giving Bitcoin eyes and a brain in which to be able to manage arbitrary compute, have full programmability. And ever since then, the work has been around building an operating system around this. Over that period of time, Bitsnark was introduced in April. A couple of months later, we then introduced Charms, which is a programmable standard for Bitcoin. We then, over the course of this period, also were able to make announcements around integrations with significant chains, and in particular UTXO chains, Cardano, Litecoin, and more to come, integrating all of the UTXO chains to Bitcoin, deeply integrating them into Bitcoin, effectively creating around Boss a super chain of UTXO chains, and have seen a great deal of community enthusiasm from that. A large number of partnerships have also been announced, but from a technical perspective, perhaps the most exciting period has been recently, where by combining Charms and Grail, a month ago, the first ZK BTC was minted on Bitcoin. That's the first programmable BTC on Bitcoin now exists. It was done through a as yet unreleased sort of non-public version of Grail Pro, which is a version of Grail which has been specifically designed to integrate with custodians and institutional capital. And we have close to we have now several millions in BTC value in this programmable form, and hundreds of millions in commitments waiting for us to open Grail Pro out. In addition to that, Grail Pro actually was announced today, so if you guys go and look at it, we've publicly announced Grail. We're going to be expecting to see significantly more BTC being issued into UTXOs, which allow ZK BTC and BTC to become programmable. And we've also started to see other tokens issued in the form of Charms. Bro token was created by the Charms Inc. company, who are a company who have devoted themselves to building further on the Charms platform. And we've seen tens of thousands of transactions in Charms so far. In fact, so many transactions that Boss is already starting to cause Bitcoin transactions to increase in price slightly, and is attracting attention from people who are watching the Bitcoin blockchain, such as enthusiasts, but perhaps most importantly, miners. Over the next few weeks, we will not only see the increase in ZK BTC, but we also expect to see the introduction of the Boss token, and it will exist on Bitcoin as a Charms token, and also be available as an EVM token, a CNT token, and will also become tradable across global exchanges. And that's going to be a very important moment for Boss, but also a very important moment for Sovryn. One of the steps that we took at the end of last year was that the Sovryn community was going to support and incubate the Boss platform, and as a result would receive a 10% allocation of Boss tokens. And so there has been some lack of clarity because it was necessary for the Boss project to get to a point where it was able to mint these tokens and to see sort of how these tokens were going to be distributed. But at this point, we now have clarity that this 10% of Boss is going to be available for Sovryn and is going to be distributed to SOV stakers as if all of these stakers were preferred founders in the Bitcoin OS platform. So what does that mean? So the standard founder vesting in Bitcoin OS, so people who have sort of joined the project early, so last year, and have been working ever since, have received an allocation of Boss tokens. This allocation is with a 1-year cliff from TGE, and then a 4-year vesting period. There is also a separate allocation which has been given to early investors, effectively VCs or strategic partners, and that is a 1-year cliff and 3 years vesting. What is being allocated to Sovryn is the best of both worlds. On the one hand, there is no capital, so the VCs or investors needed to invest capital in Bitcoin OS, There is no capital being invested by sovereigns or sovereign in order to receive the allocation. But on the other hand, so in that respect, like founders, but the vesting is a preferred vesting. It is the same vesting that those investors are receiving, which is a 1-year cliff and 3 years vesting. So from the moment of TGE, there will be a 1-year cliff, and after that, over the course of 3 years, this 10% of BUS tokens will be distributed to SOV stakers as an additional form of revenue for SOV stakers. As of now, obviously it's hard to put a numeric value to this, because this is something which will be decided by the market, and this token hasn't begun trading yet. But as of now, the FDV at which investments have been made, including the pre-sale, are at a 200 million FDV, which would translate to a $20 million allocation provided to the BUS community. And so one way to think about that is we're looking at an additional $5 million, assuming this price were, to hold throughout the 4 years, not to increase or not decrease. Over that 4-year period, it averages out to an additional $5 million in revenue per year to SOV stakers. So, given current sort of valuation assessment, this would represent a 6x increase over the already robust value being provided to SOV stakers. And so my goal here, the goal of the team, and I think the goal of our community as a whole, is to make sure that sovereign stakers were properly being rewarded, that sovereign stakers had strong incentives to maintain a highly robust, decentralized form of governance, and that there was the incentives in place to provide that. We took a big bet on Bitcoin OS. One of the ways that this is going to play out for us is through this allocation, and could indeed potentially be extremely lucrative for SOV stakers and make SOV staking ever more attractive and valuable. So, when we do this, our intention is also to then make a push to ramp up the availability of SOV, the liquidity of SOV, and the visibility of SOV across exchanges. It is currently traded across a number of trading platforms, both DEXs and SEXs, but we're going to be looking to increase that because we feel like the current price for the SOV token is not being properly reflected. Not today, and certainly not in terms of its potential earning power in the years going forward. All right, so one of the ways that we think that this is valuable for Sovryn is this direct equity, effectively, in the BUS platform. But beyond that, the reason that the BUS platform work began in the first place, the reason why it was important for Sovryn to be part of this, was because we wanted to be able to go beyond rootstock, which still depends on merge mining, on a federated peg, and has not proven to be a platform attractive enough for many Bitcoiners and not for institutional players in the BTC space. We needed to provide a platform which was better suited to truly trustless Bitcoin DeFi, which was truly suited for industrial grade DeFi, which can also be attractive to institutional players. For many years, we've discussed how Bitcoin, in order to become the reserve asset we all want it to be, needs to be able to play that role by offering utility as a counterparty risk-free, non-government form of collateral and an asset which can be used to generate yield without taking counterparty risk. To this day, that is still impossible with Bitcoin. The platforms and the tooling to make that happen do not exist. But while this was important 5 years ago when we started working on Sovryn, it is 100 times more obviously important now. Today there's between 2.5 million and 6 million, depending on how you define it, BTC held by institutional players. I talk to them all the time. They are looking for counterparty risk-free opportunities. They are looking for ways to turn their BTC into collateral without having to deposit or utilize centralized services. And their alternatives are, their options for doing this are effectively non-existent. And so there is a multi-$100 billion market out there that we need to be able to address for the good of Bitcoin and for the good of Sovryn, but also because that will allow us to build the tools which I think almost everyone who's involved in the Sovryn project want to be able to use for themselves, and I know that I certainly do. I want to be able to have Bitcoin as something which I never sell, and that is there for my family for generations to come. And so that's where the importance of the Sovryn Layer comes in, and I think it opens up a new chapter for Sovryn in terms of what we're going to be able to develop, build, and provide to the world. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the goal with the Sovryn Layer is to provide, on the one hand, Bitcoin's native DeFi platform, and also the place where, in the early days of the BOSS ecosystem being built out, we can capture, as Sovryn, a significant position as a provider and a platform for where, if you're a dev, this is where you come to build. If you are a user, this is where you come to utilize the BOSS platform. And so there needs to be a place where people can use ZKBTC, where people can use BOSS token, where people can borrow and trade with Bro token, with all the other tokens which will be issued and become part of this growing BOSS ecosystem. And for that, what we need is a platform which is integrated with BOSS and secured by Bitcoin. A system where all of the transactions are aggregated as ZK proofs, written to Bitcoin, and become a Bitcoin transaction. In other words, that all the transactions ultimately have Bitcoin level security. We can move over to the next platform. Okay, so our goal is to put the Sovryn Layer out. We're now at a point where we've been working on the Sovryn Layer for a long time. It has proven to be a complicated project. We had an early DevNet running now for multiple months, but we're getting closer to the place where we're going to be able to put out first a testnet and then a mainnet in short order. And with that, we're going to be looking for Sovryn, not just to launch the layer, but to launch the two key DeFi primitives that go with that, which will be added to the Sovryn Origins Launchpad platform, providing a way for people to issue assets, to raise capital, and then for the tokens that are generated by that activity and just generally by activity in the BOSS ecosystem to have access to trading and to lending. If we could move on to the next slide, please. So we already have demonstrated the value of and the possibility of generating a secure lending platform, one which has been operating for half a decade now. We're going to be introducing a version for the Sovryn Layer which takes advantage of the optimizations that are available on the Sovryn Layer, which are not available on Rootstock or really in many places. We're going to be able to offer lower gas fees, better strategies, new ways of lending and borrowing, and new ways of isolating risk for lenders and generating yield with specific strategies. Not all of this will roll out on day one, but much of it will. And then with all of the charms tokens that are going to be generated, both for activity on Bitcoin and for activity between chains utilizing Bitcoin security, in other words, charms, we're going to be offering not just a lending platform, but also the possibility for trading. And one of the key issues that we've discussed here many times is that today, for trading platforms, for swaps platforms, using the old AMM model, there's a huge bottleneck around liquidity. So we're going to be looking to introduce systems which are far more efficient. A DEX far more efficient from a liquidity perspective, and one where market makers can play a role in providing lower slippage and a broader set of tradable assets. And so that brings me to the next slide. The final piece of this puzzle, final piece of the plan that we've been discussing, is for Sov itself, the Sov token itself, to become a canonically Bitcoin secured token, a programmable token which exists and is issued first and foremost on Bitcoin, and then can also exist and use the ability now to do trustless sort of beaming, so bridgeless bridging to different platforms, chains, execution environments, including the Sovryn Layer, that are integrated to Bitcoin via BOSS. And so for the last year, a small part of the yield which has been earned by SOV stakers has been something we've been calling OSSOV, right, which is a placeholder for SOV, which will be introduced on as canonical SOV, will be issued on Bitcoin as a charm and become available on the Sovryn Layer. And so the final piece of the puzzle is that we're going to be bringing this to fruition as well. And so everyone who's been earning OSSOV is going to get SOV token liquid and available on the Sovryn Layer. And so here's what the plan looks like. If we can go to the next slide. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to migrate Bitocracy from rootstock to the Sovryn Layer with the goal of integrating all of the different platforms that we're currently on. So that would be Sovryn Layer, Bob, and rootstock into that Bitocracy and having a single Bitocracy govern the entire BOSS stack and all of its platforms across any chain. Then old SOV, right, so rootstock issued SOV will be burned, and effectively the Bitocracy, the holdings that exist at the time that this occurs, there will be a snapshot, and all of the staked positions on rootstock will be copy pasted to the Sovryn Layer so that Bitocracy continues without missing a beat on the Sovryn Layer. At the same time, OS SOV, which has been earned, will be issued to those who have been earning it. It will be liquid, and they will be able to make the decision to stake further in order to continue earning more, including to earn more BOSS tokens or utilize its liquidity as a liquidity opportunity. 3, Sovryn Layer stakers will continue to earn BOSS in the same way that they've been earning OSSOV. They will earn BOSS from the moment that BOSS becomes available and starts unlocking. all of that BOS from that 10% will be distributed to SOV stakers according to their VP. And the final piece of the puzzle, I already mentioned, which is OSOV. And then the idea is effectively we will allow either via a airdrop or a one-way transfer for all SOV to be turned into canonical SOV. So that's the plan. We expect to bring this all to fruition over the coming months. The next big step for us is going to be the BOS TGE, which we expect to happen over the coming weeks. And then the next big step after that will be the Sovryn Layer testnet, and from there, the Sovryn Layer mainnet. Final slide. Thank you very much. Stay sovereign, and I'd like to open it up to questions.
Chain Man, how do I promote you? Thank you. Time Chain Frog, you are now a speaker. You can ask whatever you want.
You just need to unmute yourself.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, sorry guys. Idan, thank you very much for that. That was wonderful, and it's been wonderful to be part of the community for the last few years and to see you guys go through the ups and downs. It's quite something. I do have a few questions. I'd like to just read them out. I wrote them in the chat here. So the first one is, if I'm correct, can I assume that what you were saying with the podcast with Scott is that the push to institutional development that you guys are doing on BOS, I'm assuming that Sov's going to piggyback on that one as well, seeing as given the KPIs that you guys have presented this evening, that will be also be available to institutions. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a very big opportunity. I'm talking to people all the time. I'm talking to people at hedge funds. I'm talking to people at family offices. I'm talking to big holders because they were, bought in early or are miners. And I've been talking to Bitcoin treasury companies. There's a race right now to figure out how to generate safe yield on Bitcoin. And what's holding literally millions of Bitcoin back is that there is no good way to do this without swapping your BTC for some kind of contractual agreement, an IOU or a security, which if you're holding Bitcoin, that is exactly what you want to avoid, right? The reason you're holding Bitcoin is because you don't trust those instruments anymore. The last year has seen a massive drop in the faith that people have in anything which requires fiat or government regulation in order to secure the value of the asset. That includes real estate because it can't be moved and is likely to be taxed. It includes securities. It includes, more than anything, currencies from indebted countries, and all of the countries are indebted. There is, among high net worth individuals and institutions and professional money managers, a growing sense of unease and anxiety about where the world is heading, and that is a big part of the rush of institutions into Bitcoin. They're buying Bitcoin for the same reason we did. They're just doing it later. At the same time, we've also seen something remarkable, we've seen over the last year, and while there's been all of this sort of new demand coming online, there's also been, for the first time, an unprecedented wave of people who have been holding Bitcoin for, half a decade, a decade and a half, selling their Bitcoin. The reason is that many of those people sort of have a deep suspicion of institutions. They see the institutionalization of Bitcoin. They haven't had an opportunity to realize the value of Bitcoin in any other way besides selling their Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has reached a point at $100,000 and sort of with an ETF that it's basically sort of from their perspective IPO'd, and it's time to take some money off the table. And so I see two things. One, I think there is a huge opportunity for technologies, projects that are able to provide ways to utilize your BTC without having to sell it. And I want to direct and play a role in directing as much of that into Boss as possible. And via Boss, I want to direct it into Sovryn. I think there's an opportunity for Sovryn here to become one of the key players in providing lending, trading, and other DeFi tools, either directly by providing the application or on the Sovryn Layer to the Bitcoin space. The other thing that I am hoping we are going to be able to do here is, in so doing, we will reduce the need for people to continue to sell their Bitcoin and allow Bitcoin to become something which, if you want to realize the value there, or you want to be able to live off their value, you can do it via means which don't require you to sell it. So yes, I think there's a big opportunity here. I think Sovryn can be significantly placed to play a major role in that opportunity, and that is the goal.
Thank you very much. And then just two more questions. Number one, what a wonderful piece of news regarding the BOS distribution. It's really great to hear what you guys want to do there. I'm just interested to know how far do you guys think about keeping the treasury whole, or at least, supporting the Sovryn treasury as well, given that, it's not just the stakers that make Sovryn work.
I think that's beyond the scope of this conversation, because there's already quite enough here, and we're going to need to have sips around some of this. But yes, you're absolutely right. I, several months ago, said we need to professionalize Sovryn a little bit. Said, in my view, it should have like a CEO. I think it needs to have a budget, and I think it's important that if we want to continue to be able to see this platform succeed in the future, it's generating significant revenue for us. I think it's going to generate even more revenue for us in the future, but it can only do that if it has funding. And so I think it's going to be very important for us to have a debate as a community in the near future around how we're going to make sure that part of the revenue, which currently 100% of it goes to stakers, is directed to the exchequer and directed to the team and the builders that keep the lights on. That said, in my view, that debate should be. It is my view. I don't think that debate should include the BOS token. And the reason I don't think that debate should include the BOS token is not really a rational reason, but rather it is my perception that people feel like they've waited a long time for the BOS token. Even after TG, they'll have to wait another year. And it is my sense that that at least part of the community would feel a sense of betrayal if part of that was carved off for the exchequer. What we have done is we've managed to negotiate with BOS, and we've managed to get a small allocation of BOS token in addition to the 10% which will be provided to the Sovryn team. It's not a very big allocation, but it is sort of there as a token of appreciation from Boss for all of the effort and support that we've received from the Sovryn team. But we, as the Sovryn community, we do need to have a serious and adult conversation around how we transfer some of the capital to Sovryn Exchequer and via the Exchequer to the team.
Thank you very much. And then the last question, and I'll stop for tonight. Sorry, everybody. I've asked these questions in a specific order for a specific reason because they've given me some time to think. And the last question was, what can we do to help as stakers? And I did have an idea that I'd like to put forth. Obviously, we do that in our forum as a community. But is there not a possibility within the smart contract or some way that you can say, okay, listen, you know, I've staked so many Sovryn, let's say 200,000 Sovryn, and I want to put 5% into like a delegated staking area that would then sort of, with me as a staker, allow me to delegate or to give away or to provide funding to the executor via that specific part of the smart contract. But like I'm just mentioning something here, sort of dropping a bomb. It's an idea that I thought I'd just put into the community tonight, just for you guys to think about. But what can we do more to support the community? That's what I was actually trying to say.
Thank you very much. I think it's a lovely idea. My sense is, though, that we are going to need to have something sort of integrated into the system, which can be relied upon and is not just based on sort of voluntary participation, because that creates, you know, a sort of potential free rider problem. But I think it's a lovely idea, and if people want to donate part of the revenue that they're earning, I think you can, even if there is no sort of official mechanism to do it, it's already a possibility if you wish. Thank you. Any other questions?
Weedy, you're welcome to the stage.
Hi everyone. I just have two little questions here. Personally for Jago, on where we can see you on upcoming weeks, on which conference, and second about boss tokenomics, when we can expect it. Today we got part of info, when we can got full tokenomics. Thanks.
Thank you. So, with regards to conferences, I will be in Singapore from Friday or Saturday. So, if anyone is planning to be at the conference in Singapore, please, look me up. And beyond that, I think I will also be at a Dubai conference in November. But I'm trying not to travel too much. There's a lot of work to do. So right now, I think those are the only two on my agenda. With regards to the tokenomics, the boss tokenomics, I think will be published quite soon, certainly in advance of TG.
Okay, self answers.
French, are there others? I think I see Joel Might looking to ask a question.
Yep.
Go ahead, and if you guys don't want to speak, you can also write the question in the chat box.
Hey, Echo, I was just wondering, I know this doesn't pertain to Sovryn, is there a timeline of when the boss will have its token generation?
Only a rough timeline, but we're expecting it to be over the, let's call it the coming 8 weeks.
One other question, with what we're seeing with all the loans being taken out, zero origins, because of Bitcoin reaching all-time highs. Are we thinking about doing much with Sovereign to market itself to that because of such a huge amount of interest it seems to be garnering within this application?
Okay, so there's no sort of formal marketing plan around that. Beyond the standard activity that we already engage in, which is mostly on social media. The reason for that is you guys may remember that 18 months ago, we came and we said, look, the project has 18 months of runway. We still have 18 months of runway. But the reason that we still have 18 months of runway is because we've been extremely conservative with spend, and marketing can be one of the most expensive things to spend. So, what we hope to do is avail ourselves of two things. One, as Boss launches and the Sovryn Layer launches, and the opportunity to get to a larger audience becomes available, we want to piggyback off of that, utilize that as an opportunity, and also sort of piggyback off of the Boss marketing. Second thing is, as this project matures, and it's starting to be a fairly mature project, for a decentralized project, a lot of the marketing needs to rely on word of mouth. That is the most authentic and sustainable. And so, ultimately, a big part of that is going to be based on, are the users who are using that telling other people, telling their friends, that is what they're doing, and like, look, I found this hidden gem, here's this opportunity, you should be aware of it. The reason that we continue to see activity is because that is happening, and I think if we have greater exposure via Sovryn Layer, via Boss, and via additional exchange listings, that will be amplified.
That makes perfect sense. Thanks for that.
Okay, French, I think I'm going to hand the mic back to you.
Thank you, Iago, for the Q&A and of course for the presentation. Thank you everyone who came tonight. If there are no further questions at the moment, we will close the call, but of course, happy to chat with everyone here on Discord or the forum. Okay. So that's it for now. Thanks everyone. Look how you can close the call. Stay sovereign, everybody.